Greetings, my dear viewer. You're on the channel The Price of Cheating. The channel is for those who appreciate traditional family values and condemn adultery. So be sure to subscribe to the channel. Let's get started. In every man's life, there comes a moment when he faces a difficult choice. Should he stand his ground or let go? For me, it was impossible to imagine that my wife could have done what she did. We had spent 29 years together, raising 3 children. Our youngest daughter, Macy, is my little girl, now 19 years old. Mike, our middle son, is 21 and serves in the Navy. Jason, the eldest, is 25, married, and has given me the joy of being a grandfather to 3 grandchildren. I didn't spend years of my life working tirelessly for my family just to lose everything in the end. It wasn't just about my wife's infidelity, but the way she chose to betray me. That's what hurt the most. After 29 years of marriage, I believe Emily just grew tired and decided she needed something new. I'm sure she thought I was too blind, too trusting to suspect her of cheating. She probably felt confident, believing I would never hurt her. Maybe I was too romantic or trusted a woman who didn't deserve it. My name is Richard Wang, and Emily and I are both 50 years old. To others, we might have seemed like a typical middle-aged couple, but I never thought that way. I took care of myself, ran 2 miles a day, ate right, and, most importantly, took care of my family. Isn't that what a man is supposed to do? Emily had always been my rock, the anchor of our family for the 29 years of our marriage, and the years we were together before that. She was always the glue that held everything together. She was there for every important event, from weddings to hospital visits and funerals. Whatever life threw at us, she never gave up. So why am I sitting here alone in our house waiting for the kids to come back? Let me explain. Last year, Emily started distancing herself. She became less social and often seemed lost in her thoughts. Every time I asked if something was wrong, she brushed it off, saying it wasn't serious. But 2 months ago, her behavior changed so much that I couldn't ignore it anymore. I constantly reminded her that we were together, as husband and wife, and that nothing could separate us. Then suddenly she smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen in a long time. That smile eased my worries. It made me believe everything would go back to the way it was. But then Emily asked me to sit down and listen to her without interrupting. I agreed, and she began. For the next hour, she poured out her emotions. Much of what she said shocked me, but I remained silent and listened. She confessed that she felt trapped and had lost herself in our marriage. She said she needed space to rediscover who she was. Emily explained that for years she had felt increasingly distant. Now that Macy, our youngest daughter, was about to leave for college, she felt it was time to focus on herself. And then she dropped the bomb. She had already found an apartment and planned to move out the day after Macy left for college. I don't remember the exact moment Emily finished speaking and left the room. It was like a blur. I felt nothing. The next thing I remember is Macy gently waking me at 1 in the morning asking what had happened. She had just returned from a date. When I looked at her, she gave me a knowing look and asked if her mother had told me. I asked when she had found out. Macy said her mom had shared her plans with the kids 2 months ago. Stunned, I asked why no one had told me. Macy hesitated, then admitted that her mom had made her promise to keep everything a secret. At that moment, I felt betrayed not only by Emily but also by my own children. They all knew, but no one said a word to me. And as if that wasn't enough, I didn't even realize that this wasn't the only secret they were hiding. But I had a feeling that the whole truth would eventually come out. And sure enough, I soon found out that Emily had been seeing another man for 2 years, someone younger, named James, who was 40. She claimed she needed to go through this experience. It didn't take me long to make my decision. Neither Emily nor our marriage was worth fighting for anymore. If she wanted to leave, I wasn't going to stop her, but it wouldn't come without a cost. That cost? The house and my pension. If she wanted to start a new life, so be it. But I wasn't going to hand over the house I had worked hard for or fund her betrayal. You're telling me that after all these years of deceiving me behind my back, leaving me, and now you expect me to pay for all the time you spent lying to me? Absolutely not. That will never happen. and with a single signature, our 29-year marriage was over. She left, taking everything she could claim, or that I allowed her to take. On that final day in court, I wished her well, walked out of the courthouse, and started a new chapter in my life. 5 long years passed before I saw Emily again. Once I was free, the first thing I did was go on a deep-sea fishing trip, which turned out to be one of the best decisions of my life. The calm of the open ocean, with the sound of the waves and the seagulls, was exactly what I needed. I enjoyed it so much that I sold my house on land and bought a home on the water. Around the same time, I filed for my retirement, cashed in my account, and started planning for the future. With $500,000 in the bank, I'd receive $3,500 monthly for the rest of my life. I bought a large yacht for my new life at sea, determined to spend my days sailing the seas. Who knows, maybe along the way I'll meet a mermaid. A man can dream, right? As they say, the sea called me, and it was exactly what I needed. Time flew by. It had been nearly 5 years since I became a sailor, hardened by the winds. After returning from a 2-month cruise, I got a call from Maisie. She asked how I was doing and where I was. Suspecting her sudden interest, I asked what she needed, sensing there was more to this. And then Maisie dropped the bomb. Emily needed my help. I immediately asked why, after all these years, her mother suddenly needed something from me. Then Maisie delivered more news. Emily had a little girl. I didn't know about that. When Maisie asked if I'd meet with her mother, I refused. She got angry, asking how I could be so heartless. I replied by asking how she could justify her silence, knowing that her mother was planning to leave me, yet she said nothing. Then I hung up. The phone rang non-stop for the next 10 minutes, but I ignored it. Eventually, I just turned it off. The next morning, I changed my number and started preparing for my next voyage. This time, my small but cozy and woman-free boat was set on course. Just as I was about to set sail, my sons, Mike and Jason, appeared on the dock. They seemed unsure of what to say, so I invited them on board and gave each of them a beer. Jason spoke first. "Dad, we know we should have told you what Mom was planning, but we honestly didn't think you'd react this way or that it would drag on for so long. You were always busy with work anyway," he mumbled. Then Mike added, "Mom was lonely, and yeah, she made a mistake. But now she needs your help, and you're just turning your back." I stayed silent, watching them. Jason cleared his throat, exchanged a glance with Mike, and asked, "Aren't you going to say anything?" I wanted them to understand my perspective before I left. "Guys, I don't get it. Your mother cheated on me, left, and we've been divorced for years. Now she has a child with someone else." They nodded, albeit reluctantly. "So what does this have to do with me? Let's not forget that you 3 hid her plans from me and I was left in the dark. You all knew what was happening, but none of you said a word. And now she's in trouble, and I'm suddenly the bad guy? Honestly, I'm surprised you even found me, considering I haven't heard a word from you in 5 years. The last time I saw you was in the newspaper, in a photo with your mother and her new husband at some hospital wing opening. You all looked great, like the perfect family. They even called you, what was it? Ah, yes, the happiest family in town. So, what are you doing here?" They sat there, clearly uncomfortable and unsure. Finally, Jason summoned the courage, cleared his throat again, and said, "Dad, Karen needs a kidney, and Mom wants you to get tested to see if you're a match." I stared at him, stunned. "Are you serious? Why should I get tested for a child who has nothing to do with me?" "Why are you really here?" I asked again, feeling the sharp edge of irritation in my voice. A heavy, awkward silence hung in the air. Finally, Jason and Mike exchanged glances, their faces tense, before they delivered the shocking news. "Dad, here's the truth. Karen, she's your daughter. Mom was already pregnant when she left." These words hit me like a sledgehammer. Stunned, I stood there struggling to process what I had just heard. Shock didn't even begin to describe what I was feeling. "How old is she?" I barely whispered. Jason, lowering his eyes, quietly responded, "She's 4. I took a deep breath, trying to hold back my anger. "And how long have you known about this?" I asked, though the question barely concealed the rage building inside me. They looked at each other again, hesitating. Finally, Mike spoke. Mom told us around the time of the divorce. I stared at them, my sons, whom I had raised and taught to always stand by the truth, but now they seemed like strangers to me. These were my children, and they had kept something so important from me. Disappointment crushed the last remnants of faith I had in them. There was no point in continuing this charade. It was over. Without a word, I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. A single nod was enough for them to understand. It was time to leave. Jason and Mike hesitated for a moment before heading to the dock. Within minutes, they were gone, leaving me alone with the suffocating silence of my thoughts. I continued my final preparations, ready to sail away and leave all of this behind. But just as the boat began to pull away from the dock, I saw Emily running toward me, her desperation growing with each step. She jumped onto the boat at the last second, just as I was about to turn off the engine. I was ready to push her off when suddenly, a child's voice called out from the pier. A little girl was calling for her mother. I snapped. "Get off my boat, Emily!" I roared, all my anger spilling out. Instead of obeying, she pulled out a pair of handcuffs and with one swift movement, cuffed herself to the dock cleat. She sat down, her voice trembling but filled with determination. "Richard, please," she begged, her eyes filling with tears. "Don't take this out on Karen. She's innocent. She needs a kidney donor, Richard. She'll die without it. I know I hurt you, but please don't punish her for my mistakes." Her words didn't reach me. I looked at her, cold and detached. "I'm not the man you knew anymore, Emily," I replied, my voice icy. "I've changed and it's your fault. I don't care about you or her. Karen doesn't exist to me, and you would have never told me anyway. You and that child mean nothing to me." She sobbed, rattling the chains, begging, but I was resolute. Grabbing an axe, I approached, ready to cut through the handcuffs. But something stopped me. A thought flickered in my mind. Maybe this was my chance to fix the mistakes of the past. "Emily," I said, unexpectedly calm. "I'll help Karen." Her face lit up, disbelief mixed with hope. "Anything, Richard! I'll do anything!" she cried, her voice cracking with relief. I returned to the dock, and Jason rushed over with the key to free her. The joy on her face was palpable, but I remained cold, calculating. The next morning I found myself in the hospital, with my lawyer by my side. Emily's joy quickly turned to suspicion when she saw him. After they took my blood, the doctor returned with the news. I was a match as a donor. Emily's joy was short-lived. My lawyer stepped forward and presented the terms. "To save Karen," he said firmly, "you must sign away your parental rights, permanently." I looked at Emily, our eyes locking. "For years I sacrificed everything for you and the kids. When you wanted a new car, I gave you mine. When the kids needed something, I worked myself to exhaustion to provide for them. I missed all of their childhoods, and what did I get in return? Betrayal, from every one of you." I glanced at my former family gathered together, their faces pale. "Now it's your turn to sacrifice. If you truly love Karen, you'll let her go, or you can wait for another donor." Emily's face twisted in rage and despair. "I will never give up my child!" she screamed. Without a word, my lawyer and I stood to leave. Jason and Mike rushed to block our path, but my lawyer stopped them. "Touch him, and I'll make sure you spend the next 10 years behind bars." They froze, torn between anger and common sense. Then my eldest son spoke, his voice shaking with emotion. "How can you live with yourself knowing you're letting your own daughter die?" I stopped and turned to face him, meeting his gaze with cold indifference. "And how do you live with yourself, knowing you turned your back on me? Does that guilt keep you up at night?" "Tonight, I will sleep peacefully." The events that took place at the hospital became the catalyst for a serious conflict. In the days that followed, there was talk of imposing a legal restriction on me that would have kept me in the country indefinitely. But, just at the right moment, I started the engine of my boat, pulled away from the dock, and after about a mile out into open water, I stopped. I calmly rocked on the waves, paying no attention to the commotion and desperate gestures of those left on shore. Soon, a bailiff approached me by boat, but I increased my speed and sped away. They would have had to chase me for hundreds of miles along the coast before I would even think of unfurling the sails. Once we crossed the border into international waters, the bailiff gave up. I dropped anchor about a mile offshore, and as soon as I had signal, I called my lawyer to get the latest updates on the situation back home. He told me that Karen's condition had worsened and that Emily was desperate to speak with me. I asked him to arrange a video call. When the call connected, Emily once again begged me to reconsider my decision. I couldn't hold back a smirk. "It's just like how you and the others treated me," I replied. "You three conspired against me and threw me overboard. So, Emily, if you can't accept my terms, we have nothing more to discuss except to say goodbye." In the end, she had no choice but to agree. When I arrived at the hospital, I wasn't alone. I had Child Protective Services representatives with me. To avoid any complications, I also hired 2 former police officers for extra security. No one but me was going to take Karen out of that hospital. Fortunately, the kidney transplant surgery was successful. On the 5th day of our stay, Emily entered my room accompanied by a man, her current husband, the very one she had left me for. He extended his hand for a handshake, but I ignored it, immediately cutting to the chase and asking why they had come. It was obvious they were trying to play on my emotions, but that ship had sailed long ago. Emily and the kids had ensured that. Her new husband, realizing that emotional manipulation wouldn't work, switched tactics and offered me money. Their audacity was almost amusing. They thought they could buy me off. As expected, they left disappointed. On June 10th, Karen and I were discharged from the hospital. By then, Child Protective Services had filed a lawsuit against Emily for interfering with my parental rights. Her court hearing was scheduled 3 weeks later. When we left the hospital, my security detail was vigilant, their hands ready near their holsters, prepared for any danger. Karen and I were escorted to a car and taken directly to my boat. One of the guards boarded first to ensure everything was in order and that no one had snuck aboard. Despite all these precautions, I had a nagging feeling that something was wrong. So as soon as we got the all clear, we set sail immediately. As the shore began to disappear into the distance, Karen cried for hours. Eventually, I called her down to the lower deck and showed her her cabin. It was filled with all kinds of dolls and the most modern games. After a while, she came to me, handed me her phone, and asked me to keep it safe. Then she told me a secret. Her mother had told her that if the phone stayed on the deck, they would be able to track us. After she ran off to play with her dolls, I carefully inspected the phone. Sure enough, it was loaded with tracking software. I wasn't surprised. This was exactly what my instincts had warned me about. So they wanted to track us? I would give them something to track. I placed the phone in a waterproof bag, tied it to a life jacket, and threw it overboard. Let their tracker drift wherever it wanted, but as for Karen and me, we were setting off on an adventure, letting the wind decide our course. At first, Karen and I had to relearn how to understand each other, but in the end, everything worked out wonderfully. It's been about 14 years since then, and Karen has grown up. She's now preparing to go to college, aiming for university. Recently, she wrote to her mother, letting her know that she would return to the U.S. for her studies. My daughter has grown into a sensitive and compassionate young woman. I have completely provided for her education, and now she is ready to conquer the world. The pride I feel as a father is unparalleled, and there is nothing that could surpass this sense of fulfillment. As for me, I'll keep it brief. I met an amazing woman named Telia. Her black hair and bright blue eyes made an unforgettable impression. Together, we have created something beautiful, and life feels incredibly rich and complete. Jason recently learned a cruel lesson in betrayal. His mother, Emily, and his wife decided to throw a bachelorette party. When his wife returned, she was completely broke, and soon it was clear she was pregnant. The most interesting part? The baby was born with a darker complexion, revealing that she had become pregnant by someone else. As for Emily, she didn't waste any time. After parting ways with James Paxton, she made a practical decision and got together with his brother. Emily always knew how to find the easiest path. Sometimes people's decisions are just baffling. Take Macy, for example. She was abandoned just before her wedding when her fiancé confessed that he was in love with someone else. And then there's Mike, who works tirelessly in construction, barely making ends meet. But I'm simply happy to have raised a wonderful daughter who adores me and will never betray me. This concludes the story. If you like it, then put your powerful like and subscribe to the channel.